Let's face it, sometimes you shouldn't ask questions that you don't want the answers to. I mean, it's just that simple, as a cruiser has recently found out when making an inquiry about the appropriateness of one of their outfits. We got to talk about this cruiser that's being shamed over their outfit. Plus, we've got some cruise news. Cruise news and my views. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here to talk you through everything going on in cruising. And well, I've got an interesting show for you today. We got a big old pile of cruise drama and a equally big old pile of cruise news. Cruise news story number one. There is a cruise line out there feeling super sad that they're not represented in the world's most popular embarkation cruise port. We're talking about Port Canaveral, and we're talking about the cruise line Princess. Did you know that you can't get on a Princess cruise in Port Canaveral? You got to go down to Miami, or you have to go to Port Everglades there in Fort Lauderdale. Well, that situation is about to be rectified. Well, about to be rectified is probably subjective, because this change isn't taking place until November of 2024, when Princess fans will be able to cruise out of Port Canaveral on the Caribbean Princess. Princess Cruise Lines will join many of the other major cruise lines sailing out of Port Canaveral, including Carnival Cruise Line, Royal Caribbean International, Norwegian Cruise Line, MSC, Disney Cruises. It still leaves a few of the major cruise lines not making a play for Port Canaveral, but dagnabbit, you should. I wish they would. Port Canaveral is one of the easiest ports for me to get to, so selfishly, I would like all of the cruising options out of Port Canaveral, please. It is a bit of a double-edged sword, though, because the more cruise companies, cruise ships that go to Port Canaveral, the more busy that place will be, and they're going to have to work on the infrastructure there, because it's already a little bit strained under the current popular situation for Port Canaveral. But I'm excited. How about you? Are you a Princess Cruise fan? Are you excited to be able to cruise out of PC on Princess? Leave a comment below. Cruise news story number two deals with Ukrainian refugees who are currently making their home on a cruise ship that is docked in Edinburgh in Scotland. The 1,150 displaced Ukrainian refugees have been making their home on the cruise ship, the MS Victoria. The contract that is providing for these refugees to live on the MS Victoria does expire in July, and the local authorities there in Scotland are saying that they would like to get the passengers moved off of that cruise ship into other housing. They're not going to renew the contract for the cruise ship, and so the process has begun to relocate those refugees. Many will relocate to the Edinburgh area, but there is a housing shortage there, and so some of the refugees will be relocated to other spots in Scotland. This is just one example of a cruise ship being used to house Ukrainian refugees. The Red Cross is a little bit concerned with the living conditions, which this is pretty ironic in the cruise space. These folks have been living several months on a cruise ship. Some of these folks living in interior cabins without, access to windows to the outside, also with spotty internet. It's really interesting when you hear it put in that context by the Red Cross, concerned for the mental well-being of people living in these conditions. When you think about crew members that live 6 months at a time in cabins without windows and with spotty internet access, I mean, it just makes you ask, if one circumstance is mentally challenging for housed refugees who can actually get on and off of the cruise ship, wouldn't that same challenge be in place for crew members? It really, makes you think what crew members go through to provide us a vacation. But yeah, I just bring it up to remind us that there are cruise ships out there being used in these refugee situations. And it's a different side of cruising other than the leisure side. So there you go. Cruise news story number three, an interesting one, a story of cruise passengers suing a cruise line. This time it is cruise passengers from Australia suing Carnival PLC for a cruise that they took on P&O's Pacific Aria back in 2017. The class action alleges that P&O sailed the P&O Pacific Aria directly into a cyclone and did not give passengers the opportunity to cancel their cruise, even though there were cyclone warnings in the path of their itinerary. The itinerary in question was a cruise from Brisbane in Australia to Noumea with a stop in Vanuatu. Looking at the pictures coming off of that cruise, I can certainly understand why passengers had a bad time. It looked like really rough seas. There were portions of the ship that was closed because of the poor weather. I've been in a couple scenarios like that. I've had an itinerary altered to avoid a cyclone over New Zealand this year. I've also sailed through a typhoon in Japan. Even with stories like this, I'm still confident that the cruise lines are keeping me as safe as possible while I'm on their vessel. I mean, of course, the mariners, the seafarers take that very seriously, the health and safety of their passengers and crew. But it is interesting when stories like this comes up. It does draw into question whether cruise lines made the right decisions and whether or not passengers should be compensated because of the results of those decisions. It will be interesting to see how this plays out. Of course, this story does remind me of the Dub Pistols song Cyclone. Are there any Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 fans out there? I almost lost my job one time because I was just going to play one more 2-minute round of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. I think I was an hour late to work. Super irresponsible. Don't be late to work playing video games, but it happened to me one time. And yeah, it was that song, Cyclone. I'm running in a cyclone. They should change it, sailing in a cyclone. Man. Plus, I also like that Bad Religion song. There's a place where everyone can be happy. It's the most beautiful place in the whole world. I don't know. I love that video game. All right. I got to tell you about the cruise passenger that got shamed for their outfit. But before I do that, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. The cadence there is where it's almost like an old Southern preacher. If you want to be redeemed, you got to subscribe. I like a good cadence. What I'm trying to say is if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in cruising, I got my own cadence, cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Thank you in advance. All right, a cruiser took to Reddit the other day. I think maybe trolling. They took to Reddit the other day and they said, hey, let me ask you this. What do you wear to breakfast? They say they like to wake up, run a comb through their hair, brush their teeth, and then head off to breakfast. Now, I'm unclear whether this is breakfast at a buffet or whether this is breakfast in one of the main dining rooms, but they like to head off to breakfast wearing their pajamas. And now, I don't know what pajamas they wear. Is this like some nice, pants, shirt, pajama combo? Is this some sort of boxer shorts for dudes or booty shorts for the ladies? I'm not really sure what the outfit is, but their premise was that for breakfast, you should be able to go and have your breakfast in your pajamas. And well, that cruiser's assertion was met with a stern bit of shaming. I don't know who's over there on Reddit, but it seems like some people that are none too keen on someone wearing pajamas to breakfast. The person was kind of called like tacky and low class and all kinds of stuff like that. But it does bring up an interesting question. Are pajamas acceptable? Obviously, let's take away the big tropes. We're not talking about revealing clothes. We're talking about someone being dressed fully in a pajama. So pants, shirt, that kind of thing. Is that acceptable for your breakfast in the main dining room or the buffet? Or should you get dressed before you go to breakfast? Me personally, I wouldn't wear pajamas to breakfast, but my standard uniform is this black t-shirt and a pair of shorts. So, I mean, some might consider that pajamas. I would wear that to breakfast, but I wouldn't harsh on somebody that had on their pajamas as long as it's not revealing, that kind of thing. That is the debate. That is the drama for today. Leave a comment below. I'm just running through the soundtrack of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. I think that's the first time I ever got exposed to Rage Against the Machine. Lights out! Guerrilla Radio! There's so many curse words in all these songs that I don't typically curse here, so I won't do that. But all right. Thank you so much for checking out the show today. Tony for La Lita Loca. Till the next time. Watch this video. We'll see you on the Lido.